Bahamas Tonight.
Great to have you along this evening. I'm Shanique Miller. Welcome to the Bahamas Tonight National Report. If you read a recent headline of a popular tabloid, it claimed that the government has granted about 10,000 people citizenship, all in a bid to win the next election. Tonight, Deputy Prime Minister Brent Simonet is speaking out. Simonet says this is not the case. The tabloid claimed that thousands of people of Haitian descent are getting Bahamian citizenship, many of them residents of Abaco. Shania Noel picks up the story.
Well, he's putting those rumors about the 10,000 persons that were granted Bahamian citizenship to bed. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration, Brent Simonet, says those numbers are way off.
Certainly less than half of that 10,000, and probably way less than half. And we're not talking nowhere. I mean, that's a grossest of gross exaggeration.
In many instances, he says, persons have lived here their whole lives, but their parents are not Bahamians.
You may argue that they can get a passport of the country of their parents' birth. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. Many of them can. But many of them went through your school system. We have a policy in the Bahamas where people who are here illegally and legally, non-Bahamians, can go to schools, hospitals, and are not apprehended by immigration in the areas of churches, schools, or hospitals. It's a policy to make sure they're healthy, educated, and have access to these facilities. In recent years, this has unfortunately become a political or raised by the press to above a bar for whatever reasons. It's very unfortunate. But those people exist. They live in your country. They're the backbone to many areas in your country.
Simonet explains just how the decision is reached to grant citizenship.
These decisions are made after interviews by my staff that make a recommendation to me. I then sign the recommendation. It then goes to the full cabinet. The full cabinet takes a decision, and then these people are sworn in. So any question of it being secretly done is journalistic license.
While over the years many have made regularization a political issue, the Deputy Prime Minister stressed that this exercise has nothing to do with elections, but rather reducing the backlog.
It has nothing to do, as I have said before, with the election process. It's an attempt to regularize these people who are in this situation I've been talking about. We hired some 13 persons over the last, I think, 6 months, who've been working on the 4th floor of immigration since the press mentioned which floor it was, working in the conference room. There are a number of persons. One was a college graduate. A number of persons who are on a short-term hire, specifically to look at files that have been languishing in the filing cabinets at the Department of Immigration, which were sitting there for months and years in some cases because some document was missing.
Janaea Noel, ZNS News.
It's no longer a secret. Someone prematurely leaked a report into one of, if not the biggest and deadliest aviation disaster in this country's history. Ianthea Smith tracked down some officials in the aviation industry today to find out how that report ended up in the wrong hands.
Since June, the ZNS News team has been trying to get its hands on the official report from last year's Lake Killarney plane crash that claimed the lives of 9 Bahamians. But for 5 straight months, we were given the runaround, as civil aviation officials say they had more work to do before they could release it. But today, this came out, and Civil Aviation Minister Vincent Vanderpool Wallace says he wants to know who leaked that report.
Well, I would be curious to find out because we were very clear on what it is we were doing, and all the people who had copies of it understood what we were doing and coming very quickly together to put the final touches on our recommendations and any regulatory and statutory changes that could be made as a result of the findings. So we are much more focused now on making sure that the flying public is much safer in the future.
An article in Wednesday's Tribune claiming to be the official report outlines in specific details what allegedly happened the day those 9 men died in that crash on October 5th, 2010. Minister Vanderpool Wallace is now questioning if this is even the correct report that's circulating.
I don't know. I haven't read the story as yet. I just heard that it's been released. That's a very good question. I will find it out hopefully later this afternoon.
Manager at Flight Standards Inspectorate Hubert Adderley telling our news team off camera that while he won't put his head on the chopping block, he's certain the leak didn't come from his offices. He says just like everyone else, he's trying to figure out who let the cat out of the bag. Now, what about the consequences?
I don't know the circumstances. I mean, frankly, we wanted to issue the report as quickly as possible, how it got out, so I'm not going to speculate on it at the moment. I just want to make sure that we move forward in terms of the recommendations to make the flying public safer.
The aviation minister says his department owed it to the public to not only release the report, but release it with recommendations moving forward. He says they were just in the process of fine-tuning those suggestions before they released the report, adding that there's nothing catastrophic in it being out. That is, if this is the correct one. Well, civil aviation officials say an investigation will be launched to find out who done it. I am Thea Smith, ZNS News.
If you thought the completion of the $120 million New Providence Road Improvement Project was nearing an end, well, think again. Numerous issues, including unmapped underground utilities, the lack of coordination with utility companies, and now disgruntled employees coming forward, has resulted in the Ministry of Works, or Minister of Works, conceding that the schedule is off. We get the story tonight from Clint Watson.
Some of the Bahamian workers employed by Argentinian Jose Cataloni company contracted to carry out the $120 million road improvement project are accusing the company of poor treatment, low wages, and not being paid on time. While they opted not to show their faces on camera, they are calling for intervention as they claim the project is behind schedule.
Everybody on this job doesn't know what time it is, and ain't nobody killing themselves out. Ain't nobody killing themselves out for this chicken feed. If they just paid and pay, we could have knocked this out. These payments, these workers.
As long as they pay people, people will push out their effort to come do what they have to do.
The group of frustrated Bahamian workers attribute the breakdown in communication to a language barrier. ZNS News spoke with Jose Cataloni's representative, Mariano Arnabar, who confirmed that the work is behind schedule and the old schedule for completion will not be met. He claims they are now back at the table to negotiate new deadlines for completion after encountering numerous problems. Works Minister Nico Grant concedes.
The infrastructure, they ain't get their thing down right. You know, sometimes the road finish, they got to come back, dig it up because they ain't consult the other partner or something concerning that.
That bothers me greatly. Regrettably, we've had occasions when the utility companies, for one reason or another, has had to dig into fresh asphalt. We continue to take steps to ensure that there's not a reoccurrence. You'd be aware that the completion date was the first quarter of next year. It is obvious that we will not achieve the targeted date.
Aside from what they're paid, another concern of Bahamian workers is the untimely manner in which they're paid.
And you will let a foreign company come into this country and pay a man $6.50, skilled man, $6.50, and we get paid every 2 weeks. And when our check, they were right.
And aside from the internal issues, another concern expressed by workers is the quality of work that's been done by this company. Some say it's less than standard.
Steel or something supposed to be the bottom of it to make it strong, to make it whole. Go right in the front there. You see any steel in the front there? What you see? Sand, not dirt, sand. Sand. So when the rain and the heavy weather come, all that wash right out from under that.
So really and truly, it's shortcutting.
It's shortcutting the weight.
In terms of work not being done up to standard, we have the supervising engineers, Mott McDonald, and we also have from the Ministry of Works, the project execution unit. There has been work done in the past that was not up to satisfaction, and they've been made to take it up and redo it.
So is the government satisfied with the Argentinian company?
In terms of its quality, is satisfactory. In terms of the speed in which it's being done, no.
Clint Watson, ZNS News.
In news from Parliament, Vanderpool Wallace led debate on the amendments to the road traffic bill in the Senate this morning. He says the proposed legislation is a direct link from the government's ongoing multi-million-dollar New Providence Road Improvement Project to advance our roadways and keep pace with modern societies around the world. Carla Palmer has more.
Key features of amendments to the road traffic bill include elimination of the Road Act insurance and enforcement of the seatbelt law. Government Senator Vincent Vanderpool Wallace stressed that none of the proposed amendments were designed out of whim or fancy. Regarding the seatbelt legislation, the senator noted that old habits die hard, but the new law is critical to safety.
It is important, I think, that the focus on this is, of course, making certain that whenever an accident happens, that we increase the potential, the survivability of the occupants of the vehicle, and again, with particular emphasis on children. It is a very strange kind of conversation that we have heard in the past where people have said that this is a cost that we are imposing on the society when it relates to people getting car seats for children. Well, if someone is going to suggest for 1 second that it is more costly to have a car seat for a child as opposed to making sure that that child is safe and secure, it is a very strange argument to be advanced.
Driving while intoxicated or under the influence of drugs is also part of the amended bill. Penalties could range from a fine, suspension of a driver's license, or even jail time. Still, Senator Vanderpool Wallace feels that some of the fines are not stiff or severe enough. He is hoping that the government soon add the use of cell phones or texting while driving to the list of offenses.
There are studies that have shown that in many cases, people texting while driving is very similar to people being under the influence. And the reason is their mind is somewhere else because they're thinking about what it is they're sending to somebody, and they're also now using their hands to do something other than control and direct the vehicles that they're in. So the idea of looking at some states who already have in place in the United States, for example, the state of Georgia, where it is an offense to be texting while driving, and so some of those kinds of things, again, allows an opportunity for the minister to come back a little bit later and take a look at what it is.
Senator Vanderpool Wallace congratulated the architects of the amended road traffic bill, including the Attorney General's office, the Ministry of Works, the Road Traffic Department, as well as the police. Carla Palmer, ZNS News.
Seconding the bill, Senator Frederick McAlpine says he supports the proposed amendment to remove the mandatory presence of police officers at minor traffic accidents, absent of a fatality or serious injuries. Says McAlpine, that's the job of an insurance agent.
Insurance persons should also be called to the scene to write the report and be what I would call the first responders to see the actual damage and assess the damages of these vehicles. Because a lot of times they're sitting in their office with the jacket on and their coat and tie and catching air condition. I don't envy them, ain't nothing wrong with that. And then they're waiting for the report, and oftentimes persons who have a claim can't seem to move forward because they say, we're waiting on the police report. See, the problem I have with this particular section is this. The fellow will tell you he was wrong at the scene. Then go home and sleep and wake up, and the next day and tell you, I wasn't wrong anymore. Hence, we have a problem, and now we're in court. It is also reasonable to say that it is not fair for police officers to be engaged in trivial or minor accidents in this day and time where their services can be engaged elsewhere.
Further, McAlpine says insurance companies should be held more accountable for the way they conduct business. Opposition Senator Hope Strawn says, like the straw marketing crime bills recently debated before Parliament, the amendments to the road traffic bill is also relevant.
This road traffic amendment bill speaks to the deplorable conditions we are now experiencing on our roads. 33 fatalities for 2011 thus far. The question is whether we are ready for this legislation, and I say that with all sincerity. The prevalence of violent crime in our society suggests that people who are out of control, people who are not good at conflict resolution. Sad to say, but true, many drivers and or their passengers are riding around armed with many illegal weapons, which we have just been debating about. It is dangerous to deliberately remove the police from the equation until we are able to get this crime under control, and that is the way I feel.
Now, speaking of that traffic bill, members of the Bahamas General Insurance Association are preparing to make their position known to the relevant authorities before the new Road Traffic Amendment Act comes into force. The act eliminates the need for police and a police report when it comes to minor traffic accidents. The act also abolishes the Road Act and requires all motorists to have at least third-party coverage. According to Dr. Roger Brown, who heads the body, there are some sections of the act that they will disagree with. They are now hoping that their views will be taken into consideration. Members are also concerned that this amendment could increase the level of insurance fraud, and without the presence of police at minor incidents, those in the insurance industry are concerned that it would be difficult to determine who exactly is at fault. When the bill was passed in the House of Assembly, Prime Minister Ingram said that the insurance companies have enjoyed an easy ride for over 60 years as police officers have done their work for them. The amendment, he says, makes it possible for police to be on the streets fighting crime.